Um,
I've heard that slackers have become even internationally famous and as a kind of a cult.
Yeah, the word translated really quickly. The word and what they took as the lifestyle or the surface representation of it translated and went to Europe rather quickly. I mean, they're still writing articles and in Europe about this Gen X slacker thing. But I mean, most of them haven't seen the movie. They haven't read the book Generation X.
Well, and then of course here locally, it scared the hell out of the Austin. What do they call those people down there who run the city?
City council.
City council, yeah. Austin City Council. They were afraid that people were going to see this and slackers from all over the country and even maybe the world were going to stream into Austin.
Well, they did. We got blamed in the South American Statesman. It was a Sunday cover story about homeless teenagers. There was a big influx of homeless teenagers into Austin, and some sergeant with the police force or somebody said it was because they all saw Slacker and thought this would be a good place to come hang out.
You see the difference?
We're used in a negative way once again.
Do you see a difference between the slackers like in your film and actual homeless people, young homeless
people?
There's
a big difference. I mean, these people are, for the most part, in and around the college environment. It's kind of by choice. It's not economic. They're not deprived in that way. Although, I mean, economic opportunities don't exist for them probably in the same way. I think that's what, back to your question, if people really related to it, it was kind of that sense of there's really nothing for you out there. Why go through school, try to get the good job, make the great grades, and then you realize, well, there's a telemarketing job waiting for you or something like that. The whole promise that corporate America had everyone believing, I think in the 50s, 60s, 70s, that the reality of that isn't so great, or that this generation saw so much dissatisfaction in the previous generation, But the whole yuppie thing just didn't seem to go anywhere, and these people seem not very happy. So it probably a moment in history where no one really knew where to put their energy. Like you go on the career tenure track, and then that doesn't look too appealing, and then, well, my band's not getting signed by anyone, it's just, so you're kind of caught. I think that's what I really wanted to depict, that kind of feeling of, it's just really of the moment. It's our communication here rather than any anticipation of some better world or that we can affect some change. Maybe there was that disaffected feeling that other generations have felt, just that, hey, maybe you don't like what your country's currently doing or what you're told you should be striving for, so drop out.
The thought I had this morning was this is a generation that comes after the hippies and the generation of the 60s, but it also comes after the yuppies, and it's a generation that basically has to pay for the orgies in the 1980s.
Of the me generation.
The me generation, but also the Reagan debt, the shrinking job possibilities, the just general
corporate takeover mentality, that job,
economic insecurities, etc. So there isn't the future for this generation that there was for previous generations. So what can you do other than live in the moment? I see the same thing with Beavis and Butthead as sort of evidence that particularly working class youth without education have no future whatsoever. All they can do is watch heavy metal TV and go out and trash things. So in this sense, it's an accurate sociological depiction.
That's my next movie.
There's a question I want to ask you. It was such a brilliant statement, I think. People are saying, well, kids are apathetic nowadays, and there's a wonderful statement that you have in one of your characters that says, withdrawing and disgust is not the same as being apathetic.
That's what our society never responds to, or never lets you argue. It's like you have to accept a consumer culture, Coke or Pepsi, Democrat or Republican, Longhorns or Sooners, or whatever the game is. And if you step outside and say neither, that's what they don't. No one can believe it when you say. The question really is what to buy, not whether to buy or not. Because as soon as you go whether to buy or not, and you can go, hey, I can live without all this stuff. Let me live in my little cheap apartment. Let me work 2 shifts a week as a waiter and support myself, and let me not buy a new car, not buy new clothes, not go out to eat every night. Then I can spend all my time reading or watching movies or playing my guitar or writing or whatever someone might truly feel better doing with their time. I mean, I think that, society really doesn't want people doing that. Doesn't seem productive.
Is this what the statement you were making when the one character said, everything you make is part of your death?
Every commodity you produce is a piece of your own death.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a little harsh, but.
Let's do that.
No, I like that, yeah.
Beautiful statement.
Yeah, no,
Rick, I have a question about the statement you're making at the end of the film. In an interview with Ali Hosseini that was published in Newsday, New York, when it opened in New York, you put a very positive gloss on the ending. It was sort of a celebration of day-to-day life, that everyone's life was worthy of cinema. That's the scene where...
Look at it and I go, well, what was I thinking? I was wondering if people do communicate. I think, when I think of that kind of communication, I think that there's a delayed reaction. Like, when that person you think is a little, that crazy person approaches you and starts talking about a paranoid conspiracy rant, your first impulse as a society member is usually like, okay, are they dangerous? Do they have a gun? Are they going to attack me? And you're defensive. In a movie, you can sit there and watch that and you're safe. I really wanted people to concentrate on the information. If the character in the movie next to them doesn't get that, or think about it in your own life, you get a lot of it in a delayed way. After that situation's over in your life, maybe the next morning you wake up thinking, what they were saying there was pretty interesting, or it makes sense. The film really depicts no immediate connections, or very few. The connections, I think, come later. Just like the closure of the movie comes later. I mean, you have to create it. Our lives don't have good closure. Our lives don't have these perfect narrative structures. Everything doesn't fall into place neatly. That's why I like the ending. To me, it's kind of a new beginning. It's on a film level, it's destroying the medium, in a way. I like that. For me, that was an early film impulse to kind of attack the medium you're working in physically to try to reinvent something. I think that's important. You see that